Supply chains going haywire, paperwork everywhere. Ever feel like your systems are stuck in the past?
Yeah, a lot of companies are struggling to keep up with, well, everything these days.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. SAP S/4HANA Sourcing and Procurement. What is it, but more importantly, how can it help businesses, maybe even yours, get ahead? We'll be using this 2020 guidebook to help us cut through the jargon and get to the good stuff.
And that good stuff is about helping you make smarter purchasing decisions, streamline your supply chain, and really understand how S/4HANA can impact your bottom line.
Music to any business leader's ears, right? But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's set the scene. What exactly SAP S/4HANA and why all the buzz, especially in procurement?
Imagine swapping out an old clunky engine for something way more powerful. That's S/4HANA for your entire business system. It's built for today's world, digital, fast-paced, and complex, especially in procurement.
No more carrier pigeons then.
Not even close. We're talking about moving away from all those old siloed systems and into the cloud.
Which is where those names we keep hearing come in, right? SAP Ariba, SAP Fieldglass.
Bingo. Those are like specialized tools within S/4HANA, connecting you directly with your suppliers in a whole new way.
Gotcha. Now, our trusty guidebook says there are 4 main ways companies are implementing this thing. Conversion, landscape transformation, new implementation, and then there's this whole central procurement model. Let's break them down.
Choosing the right implementation is critical. It's almost like picking the right foundation for a house. It all depends on your starting point, right? Mm-hmm. So conversion, that's like renovating your existing SAP system, giving it that S/4HANA upgrade. Then there's landscape transformation. That's more like merging a bunch of houses into one cohesive structure. Mm-hmm. Perfect for companies who have grown through acquisition, have all these different systems they need to bring under the S/4HANA umbrella.
So if a company is starting from scratch, they go for a new implementation.
Exactly. Clean slate, build their S/4HANA system from the ground up. But then you've got that central procurement model, the one you mentioned. It's an interesting one, especially for companies with multiple systems, maybe some outdated ones, and they aren't ready for a complete overhaul just yet.
How does that work?
Imagine a central command center for all your purchasing, even if parts of the business are still on those older systems. Central procurement lets you manage everything from this central S/4HANA system. It's about streamlining things, even if you haven't migrated everything over yet.
Sounds great in theory, but I'm guessing it's not a magic solution. Are there drawbacks?
You're right, it's not a cure-all. The book mentions some limitations with how much of S/4HANA's functionality you can actually use in this model, like those fancy reporting and analytics features, the ones that can give you a real edge. Those might not be fully available unless all your systems are on S/4HANA's.
Makes sense. Can't really unlock the full power if you're still holding on to the old ways. Okay, we've covered the playing field, but what about the rules? This business partner model sounds like a pretty big shift. What's the deal there?
It's a big one. It's like this. S/4HANA gets rid of that old way of separating customers and vendors. Now everyone's a business partner, which really simplifies your data and relationships.
No more trying to remember who's who.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just being organized. In the old way, you'd have duplicate entries, inconsistent data, a real mess. The business partner model streamlines all that, creates one single record for every entity you deal with.
Okay, so less room for error, one source of truth. But how does this help a business in the real world?
Imagine spending weeks every quarter just trying to reconcile data from different systems. The book actually gives an example of a business struggling with exactly that. But after switching to the business partner model in S/4HANA, they were able to consolidate data, eliminate redundancies, and free up their teams to focus on, actually important work.
I bet that felt good.
Huge win for efficiency and accuracy, and that always impacts a company's bottom line.
Speaking of making things easier, let's talk about everyone's favorite. Automation. Is S/4HANA going to replace us all with robots?
That's the big question these days, right? But really, it's not about replacing people. It's more like, how can we use it to make us better? Take over all those tedious tasks that bog procurement teams down, like purchase orders, processing invoices, even some of the supplier evaluation stuff.
So it's like having a whole team of super efficient assistants, freeing you up to focus on, the more human aspects of the job.
Exactly. And it's not just about taking orders. S/4HANA also gives you these really deep data insights, the kind that can help people make much better decisions.
You're talking real-time analytics, right? But what does that actually look like in practice? Paint us a picture.
So one of the key features here is something called MRP Live, which stands for Material Requirements Planning Live. Basically, it's like a real-time planning engine. helps companies optimize their inventory.
Okay, I'm having flashbacks to economics class here, all the supply and demand curves. And you break it down a bit more. How does this actually work in the real world?
Okay, so imagine being able to predict, with some serious accuracy, exactly how much of a certain material you'll need and when, all based on real-time data. That means no more overstocking, no more capital tied up in inventory you don't even need, and definitely no more scrambling to find materials at the last minute.
That's incredible, having the right stuff in the right place at the right time, all without the headache. But I have to ask, even with technology this advanced, it's not foolproof, right?
You're absolutely right. The book stresses that part a lot. Accurate data is essential. If the info feeding into MRP Live isn't accurate, well, the output won't be either. Like any tool, even a fancy one, it's only as good as what you put into it.
Garbage in, garbage out, as they say. Okay, so we've got our robot assistants taking care of the boring stuff and giving us these incredible insights. What else does S4A Jaina have up its sleeve?
Well, remember how we talked about getting an edge? There's this tool, supply-based optimization. Basically, it helps companies really analyze their suppliers and negotiate smarter.
Now that's something everyone wants to do, get a good deal. Tell me more.
I'm sure you know how much time it takes to analyze all that spending, compare prices, negotiate, right? This tool takes all that data, analyzes it all, and gives you actual, actionable insights to optimize those supplier relationships.
So it's like having a whole team of expert negotiators on call 24/7.
Exactly. And it's not just about getting the lowest price either. It's about finding that sweet spot,
Yeah.
cost, quality, risk. It's all connected.
This is all sounding really impressive, but what does it mean for the people in these jobs? Are we all going to be out of work soon?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The book doesn't really dive deep into the whole job market impact, but it does say that procurement professionals are going to have to adapt. New skills are going to be needed in this new world, more data-driven, automated.
So less about being replaced, more about evolving with the technology.
Exactly. It's like if your job is all about tasks that can just be automated, well, yeah, those might fade away. But the need for people who can think strategically, solve problems creatively, build relationships, those are only going to become more valuable.
So really, it's about learning how to use the power of S/4HANA to become even better at what you do.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another area where S/4HANA really shines, the user experience.
Let's be real. When most people think SAP, they don't usually think sleek and user-friendly. Has S/4HANA changed that?
It has, and a lot of that is thanks to SAP Fiori. Remember those old SAP screens? Clunky, tons of menus, codes everywhere. Fiori is like a breath of fresh air, like upgrading from your old flip phone to a smartphone.
I like the sound of that. But give me the specifics. How does Fiori actually improve the experience?
One of the biggest things is how it uses real-time data in the dashboards. No more running reports and waiting forever. You see key metrics and everything right there at a glance.
So it's like having a control panel for your entire operation right there.
Exactly. Track purchase orders, keep an eye on supplier performance, analyze spending, all of it in real time from one dashboard that you can customize. Which means you can spot problems early on before they become huge issues.
Talk about proactive. That's got to be a game changer for a lot of businesses.
It really is. And it's more than just looking pretty, right? Fiori makes everything easier to navigate, find what you need, get things done quickly, and without the headache.
So it's not just about looking good, it's about working smarter too.
Exactly. It's about giving everyone the tools they need, from the casual user to the pros, to be more effective.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. We talked about data, automation, even making these systems more user-friendly. But let's zoom out for a minute. What's the big takeaway? Why should all of this matter to our listener, even if they aren't in procurement?
That's a really good question. I think at its heart, S/4HANA sourcing and procurement, it's about giving businesses the tools they need in today's world. Everything's so fast-paced, so competitive. It's about helping them get what they need when they need it, which ultimately impacts everyone.
So not just about saving a few bucks, but about getting a real edge over the competition.
Exactly. And it's not just about the money either. Remember, we touched on ethical sourcing, sustainability, all of that.
Yeah.
S/4HANA can actually help companies make better choices in those areas too.
Right. We talked a little about how those real-time analytics, they can be used to track where materials are coming from. That's a big deal for businesses that really care about their impact.
Huge. Imagine being able to see exactly where a product came from, instantly, and know that it meets your standards. Transparency is so important these days for businesses and consumers.
It's about building a better supply chain from start to finish.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another area where S/4HANA can really make a difference: contract management.
Ah, yes, contracts. Everyone's favorite. How does S4HANA make that whole process less painful?
Well, think of it this way. Instead of contracts being all over the place, filing cabinets, shared drives, S/4HANA brings them all together in one central digital place. No more hunting for that one crucial document.
Just that alone sounds like a huge improvement, but it's more than just keeping things organized, right?
Right? S/4HANA, it actually streamlines that entire contract process, from creating and negotiating to approvals, renewals, the whole thing. Automating those tasks, cutting down on errors, it makes a huge difference.
Less time on paperwork, more time for the important stuff.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. S/4HANA has this tool, Enterprise Contract Management. It's almost like having a legal expert right there with you, making sure you haven't missed anything important.
Okay, so we're not just talking about storing contracts, but actually managing all the details within them.
Right. It helps you keep track of clauses, deadlines, obligations, all those little things that can really make or break a contract. And it's not just about compliance. It helps you analyze how the contract is performing, if there are any risks, even automate some of the management processes.
It's like having a safety net for your business, making sure everything is running smoothly.
That's a great way to put it. And when you combine that with everything else we've talked about, the data analytics, the automation, even just how much easier it is to use, it paints a pretty compelling picture of what S/4HANA can do.
It really sounds like S/4HANA is the ultimate multitasker for businesses, streamlining those processes, giving you those insights you need to make better decisions, and ultimately helping you get ahead.
It really is. But it's important to remember, implementing a system like this, it's a journey, not a race, right? There will be bumps along the way.
Right, like with any big tech change, it takes some real planning to get it right. Speaking of challenges, what are some of the hurdles businesses might face when they're switching to S/4HANA?
One of the biggest ones is data migration. If you're coming from an older system, getting all that data cleaned up, moved over, integrated into S/4HANA, it can be pretty complex.
It's like moving, right? You got to go through everything, figure out what you need, what you don't, and hope it all fits in the new place.
Exactly. And just like moving, it takes some real planning, organization, and probably a good dose of patience.
So how can you make that transition smoother? What's the secret?
Well, the book really stresses how important it is to understand your current data situation. Where is everything? What needs to be fixed? And then you need a solid plan for the actual migration.
And probably a good IT team on speed dial, right?
For sure. But it's not just about the technology either. Change management is just as important. Implementing S/4HANA, it's not just flipping a switch. It's about changing how your entire business works.
So you've got to get people on board with a whole new way of doing things.
Exactly. Communication is key. You need training, ongoing support, the whole package.
It's about bringing people along on the journey, not just springing it on them at the last minute.
That's a great way to put it. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Using technology to help people do their best work.
And that feels like the perfect place to wrap up our deep dive into the world of SAP S/4HANA sourcing and procurement. We've covered a lot, explored some really fascinating stuff, and hopefully given everyone listening some food for thought.
It's been great exploring all of this with you.
And to everyone listening, remember, this is just the beginning. We encourage you to dive into the guidebook, ask questions, and keep learning. This world of business tech, it's constantly changing, and those who keep up will be the ones who succeed.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep on diving deep.